Hello everyone. I think there's some faces here that I don't know. Raise your hand if you haven't been here before. I mean to out you, but you know. Yeah, welcome, welcome. Nice to see you. Before we go on to the topic tonight, I want to tell you just a short story that happened today at work, and it's so illustrative. I really want to let you in on it. There is so I work at the Insight Meditation Society where I teach retreats, but I also am the teacher for the staff who run the center. So the cooks, the house cleaners, a big 45 people on staff. It's a big place. And they're all practitioners, and so I'm there to support their Dharma practice. So I was meeting with a staff member today, and they're going through a breakup with their partner. And they were talking about, it was so great, it was like listening to a Dharma talk. They were saying, you know, this is really hard. And he goes, but then I started to notice that, oh, so-and-so, their mother is really having a hard time with her health. And oh, so-and-so else is having really difficult financial problems. And oh, so-and-so else. And they started to really get, it's like everybody's having difficulty. Everyone has their plate full. It's like, and the truth of that, yeah, the truth that this life just throws up its challenges. When we don't see that, and that would be called wise view, what this person was seeing, and through seeing that, I was like, oh, this isn't particular to me, this problem or this difficulty I'm having with my breakup. This is just part of life. And when they were able to hold it that way, so it's difficult, but then what we can place on top of that is like, poor me, or this is happening only to me, or it shouldn't be happening. There's something wrong. This shouldn't be happening. This isn't right. Oh man, you put that on top of already a difficult situation, now it's really hard. And so they were able to just take that off and go, no, this is just nature. This is just the nature of being a human being, that we come up against these types of things. And they were so much lighter with it because they had correct view. This is not a problem. It's just the way it is. And really, that's what we're practicing for. We're practicing so that we see clearly instead of see in a deluded way or an ignorant way, which is how mostly we see until we realize there's actually a different way to connect with the world. And once we see in that correct way, then there are no problems. There's difficulty. There's sadness. There's all of that can still be there, but there's no problem. And that's called freedom. So it's just so interesting to see this person. I just wanted to share that story with you. By seeing things correctly, oh, everyone has difficulties. This isn't just about me. In the time of the Buddha, there was a woman whose child died young, like, infant. And she was really grief-stricken, like to the point of not being functional. And to the point of like carrying her dead baby around, wailing around the city, just like, can you help me? Can you help my baby? Just really. And she found her way to the Buddha and said, can you help me? Can you help my baby? The baby's been dead for a day or two, carrying the baby around. And the Buddha said, yes, I can help you. She was like Yes, please tell me what to do. He said, I want you to go to, I want you to bring me a mustard seed from every house where there hasn't been a death. She went to the first house. Has there been a death in this house? Yes. Next house. Has there been a death in this house? Yes. Next house. And of course, she comes back to the Buddha and says, thank you. Because she sees it wasn't just her child. It wasn't just her thing. It was this is a natural, everyone dies. And it shifted her view from this terrible thing, that something's wrong. Again, not to, you have to be tricky here, not to undermine the grief and the tremendous loss and sadness and anguish of losing one's infant child, but this sense that it's somehow outside of life, that it's somehow outside of what we can expect, or outside of just what's natural. And when she saw every single house she went through had lost someone, she saw clearly. It's like, oh, that's just how it is. Okay. And then the struggle stops. And when the struggle stops, there's no problem. So it's just such a great story. I thank the staff member. I was like, thank you for that Dharma talk. That was great. Yeah, so last time I was here, I talked about the 4 skills that are very helpful to develop on this path. And they are to be able to calm and rest the mind, the heart and mind. To be able to allow it to settle. Crucial, number one, and the number one, because everything depends on that. The ability to allow the heart and mind to rest, to settle, to come to some level of stillness. Not perfectly still, it doesn't have to be perfectly still, but to gather a bit. That's the first skill. The second skill is to be able to move closer to our experience, to connect with it more intimately, not on such a surface level, not just to notice something for a split second and then to have the mind bounce off and go to the next thing. It's like, oh, what is this? And to see it deeply. It's called, and sometimes in the practice, it's called penetrating the object, meaning we're really with it and we know it for what it is. And then the third skill, and this is interesting and just as important as the second, is the skill and the ability to move away from experience when we need to. Because in our Dharma practice, in this spiritual path, one way of looking at the progression of it is that we're opening more and more to the full range of life. On this path, it's called the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows. When we start out, our lives take place inside of a circle. And everything inside that circle is acceptable to us. It's allowable, we're able to touch it, we're able to be with it, and it's acceptable to us. And everything outside of that circle is not. It's not acceptable with us. It's not okay. We're not able to be with it. And so the way the practice, the progression of it, again, one way to look at it is that this circle starts to expand. We start to be able to touch and connect with a greater and greater range of the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows. And in that, as we do that, there can be great challenges at times as we open up, especially to the difficult. There are some serious difficulties in this world and in this life. And it can be very challenging for the heart to open to those and be with those. And sometimes it can't do it. it's overwhelming. It's too much in any particular given time. And in those times, we have to know how to pull back, how to move away from that experience so that we don't get overwhelmed by it. Because it's not about, this expanding circle is not about pushing through. It's very organic. It's much more of a, you could say, a feminine principle in how it unfolds as opposed to the masculine, like point A to point B, go. It's like, not so much. So it's not about pushing. It's about cultivating the conditions that are supportive for this circle to expand, that are supportive for the heart and the mind to open to what is. But again, we're not in control. Certain conditions are just way too difficult, or we might be, our bandwidth might be a little low that day and we can't quite, all these things come together, and at any given moment, it's too much. We can't be with it. We start to get overwhelmed. We start to get flooded. We can't be with it. And the third skill is to know when and how to move away. And that's not like blowing it. That's not being a bad practitioner. That's actually being a skillful, good practitioner when the situation calls for it. The fourth skill is it's called keeping the three characteristics in mind. The three characteristics of universal characteristics of experience. And that is everything, and I'll save this for a little bit later, another month. Everything is changing. And you go, ugh, I know that. It's like, no, you don't. Not in your bones, you don't know it. Everything is changing constantly. That's all that's happening. All of this, everything is change. It's all there is. It's just change. It's so prevalent. It's so omnipresent on every level, from the microscopic level of the subatomic particles just rising and passing away so quickly, to the changing of the earth going around the sun. Like the changing of the seasons, changing of our moods, changing of our health, changing of our bodies as we grow old, the changing of our minds, from happy one moment, sad the next. Everything is changing. And keeping that in mind means kind of like remembering that, consciously kind of leaning into that knowing. The second characteristic is that everything is unsatisfactory. Whatever we can know in our hearts and minds, whatever we can touch, whatever we can taste, whatever we can smell, whatever we can see, whatever we can hear, that all of it is unsatisfactory. Unsatisfactory to what? Unsatisfactory to our heart's deepest desire, to be at rest, to be at peace. Nothing is going to do it. No thing has the capacity to do that. Another way of saying that is everything doesn't have the capacity. Everything is unsatisfactory. Doesn't mean it's bad or it's wrong. I just had a lovely slice of pizza for dinner. Yum. Pleasant. Very pleasant. Yet still unsatisfactory. It's not going to do it. Everything shares that quality, just like everything shares the quality of change. And then the third characteristic is that everything is interconnected. Nothing hangs out by itself separate from anything else. In fact, there are no solid entities. It's just momentary play of flux, of change. Have you ever seen pictures like in the movies, of fast motion of clouds going across the sky, and they're forming, and they're, yeah? So that's a great example. It's just momentary, and it's dependent on conditions. It was dependent on that there was enough moisture in the atmosphere that day, and all sorts of things. They're just coming and going, coming and going. Nothing is actually the same for more than 2 instances. And the third characteristic is that it's called not self. There are no things. They're just, the words we have for things are just convenient, relative ways of knowing them, so that we can all inhabit the same reality. So I can say, hey, look at that cloud. And you don't like look at my shoes. Like we all agree on what a cloud is. But there's no such thing as cloud. It's just a process happening and changing. So the third, this characteristic says everything displays that, including us. We are not the same person from 2 mind moments in a row. We are constantly changing, arising and passing. You've heard the, you know, I've never researched this, but it seems to be an agreed upon truth, but you know how those are as well. But this idea that our bodies completely change every 7 years, every single cell in them changes. Are you the person now, or were you the person 8 years ago? Because that person 8 years ago, at least physically, is no longer here. Which one are you? So that's the third characteristic. So keeping these 3 in mind, it's like learning to look at life through these lenses. Even if we don't know it deeply in our bones, we can still at least pick this lens up and kind of look at life through it. That's what it means by keeping these 3 characteristics in mind. And so these are 4 really important skills that we want to develop walking this path. So let's actually do some sitting and cultivate this first one. And then I want to talk a little bit more about it. This first and really most important one is to start to get some handle on this crazy mind. The mind isn't crazy. The mind's just empty, by the way. Just to say, the mind's not crazy. Like, you know, if you go to a movie theater and then there's, like, before the movie there's just the white screen, well, now there's commercials. But before there were commercials, there was just a white screen. Like, and then there was something projected on that screen, like a Western or a love story or whatever, yeah? But that's just what's projected on it. The screen, the nature of the screen was just to be blank. The nature of your mind is empty. It's completely empty. It's spacious. What goes through it? Then it takes on the qualities of what goes through it. The mind will take on whatever goes through it. Like if you have like a white fabric and you want to dye it, it will take on, you put blue dye, it becomes blue. You put red dye, it becomes red. The mind is the same way. But so when we say crazy mind, it's just like a colloquial term. There's no such thing as the mind being crazy. The mind acts crazy because it gets influenced by the craziness that comes through it. And if that craziness comes through enough, repeatedly enough, then it does actually start to take on those qualities. It starts to incline towards those qualities. So I just wanted to make that clear. Your mind's not crazy. What's crazy is what goes through it. Okay, so sitting comfortably, but with like a with an intentionality to be present and awake, and to have that intentionality to be present and awake manifest in your body. So if I wanted to manifest that in my body, I wouldn't meditate like this, right? It's like whatever, you know. I want to meditate like, yes, I'm here, I'm present. I'm interested in this moment. I'm actually not interested in daydreaming in this moment. I'm interested in being as present as possible. And the body can manifest that. And then you can either allow your eyes to gently close or have them downcast, like 45-degree angle down in front of you. And let them kind of just go out of focus. So you don't stare at a point, you're just gazing in that direction. And they'll just naturally go out of focus if you don't consciously focus on a spot. So either way, eyes closed or eyes open. And if they're open, they're kind of half open. One of the great aids we have in our meditative journey, one of our best friends, one of the best tools we have to work with is this very body that we inhabit. And we start the sitting period simply by becoming aware that there is a body. There is a body present here, sitting in this chair or on this bench. Just that simple. There is a body here. And not as an idea or as a thought, but as a direct somatic experience. That we know there's a body because we can feel it. And just that very simple act of becoming aware that there's a body here brings us into the present moment. It begins to ground the attention in the here and now. But also, and just as importantly, it starts to connect us to something that can be very relaxing, very easeful, very pleasant actually at times. And that is physically inhabiting our body. And so we feel the body sitting on the chair. You feel the weight of your body pressing down on the seat. Feel your back pressing against the back of the chair. The bottoms of the feet on the floor. These are all areas that can easily be felt. Quite evident. And you're not trying to feel anything special. You're just connecting somatically with the body. And then once we're connected, we just gently form the intention for the body to settle and relax. So it's not a command. It's not anything you have to do. The body can do it on its own. Doesn't need our help. We simply just need to kind of clear the way, gently form the intention, or you could say invite the body to relax. And as we allow the body to settle, it actually allows more and more of our bodily experience to be felt. The more the body relaxes and settles, the more we are aware of it. And then in turn, the more we are aware and the more we connect with the body, that becomes the foundation or the proximate cause for the body to relax even more. Because we end up feeling maybe little places of holding that we hadn't felt before. And so there's this reciprocal relationship, supporting relationship between feeling the body and relaxing the body. Settling. Remember, this first skill of our meditative path, of our spiritual journey, at least in this path, in the Buddhist tradition, and indeed most traditions incorporate this, is training the heart and mind to settle. Where the challenge comes in is, and we can do that for a moment, is feel the body sitting here. Ah, lovely, present, nice. The challenge is that the mind is not used to being settled. It's used to being anything but settled. And so it wanders off. Yeah, this sitting here is okay, but I want something else. I want something more exciting. And the mind is propelled by the habit patterns that have been established. If the habit pattern for the mind, if the pattern that's been established is to be judgmental, aversive, angry, then the homeostasis will be in that direction, and our mind will tend to wander in that direction. Yeah, what about that person that said that thing to me the other day? What an idiot. And we inhabit that world for some period of time. And then we wake up. Oh, right. I'm at the Harwich Community Center. Right. Right. Oh yeah, the body. Right. Okay. Then we connect with the body again for a moment or two, or three if you're lucky, on a good day. And then the mind wanders off again. Very, very lawfully, according to the habit patterns that have been established in it. Maybe the habit pattern in your mind is that wanting pleasant, acquiring things, looking to happiness through pleasant experiences. And so the mind then might start to daydream about a vacation in someplace warm. And then we live in that world for some period of time. And then we wake up. Oh, right. The body. Right, right. Okay. And this is how we train the mind. Every time we wake up, we consciously reconnect with the physical experience of body sitting. Could be at a specific spot, sit bones touching, feet touching. Or it could be a felt sense of the whole body sitting. And this sense of letting the attention rest with that experience. The way you might lay your head down on the pillow at night, like, let the attention connect with and rest with the sensations of the body. You don't grab them with your attention, you touch it lightly. So body sitting, and then some people use the sensations of the body breathing. Feeling the different sensations of the in and out breath in the belly or the chest or the solar plexus. And I know your experience, even as I'm talking, even as I'm guiding you, the mind is wandering. It's so important not to judge yourself for this. I can't do this. I'm a terrible meditator. See, I knew it, etc. It's part of the path. It's where we all start from. You cannot control when the mind wanders away. You cannot control where it wanders to. You cannot control how long it wanders, and you cannot control when it wakes up. All you can do is be aware when it wakes up, and gently but surely, without hesitation, redirect the attention back to the experience of body sitting or body breathing. Connect with that experience, let the attention rest with it, and enjoy it for as long as it lasts, because it won't be long. So you had a few minutes to become familiar with the contents of the mind. That's why they call it practice. It takes practice. The analogy, which is a good one, is training a puppy. Puppies, right? They're all over the place. If you watch them, it's exactly what the mind does. So, and then you go, no, stay. And for a split second, then it gets up and runs off. And stay, stay, stay. And you just keep doing that. But how do you do it? Do you punish the puppy for running off? No. Be very lovingly towards it. But also very clear, no, stay. And this is how we want to practice. It's the quality with which we want to practice. Gentle and kind towards ourselves, not beating ourselves up because we can't make our mind settle. No, you can't make it settle. All you can do is create the conditions that are supportive for it to. And the rest evolves according to your karma. Does anyone have any questions about what we just did, either theoretically or practically? And I want to encourage you, if you do, to bring them forward. And I know it can be a little bit tentative in a group, or oh, that's a stupid question, or it's a beginner question, or to have a chance to be with a teacher and actually get things cleared up is really, actually, not everyone has that. It's I'm not saying that I'm the end all, but just to be with any teacher, to have something clarified can be really, really helpful. The other thing about asking a question in a group, others get to benefit from it. Someone else might have the exact same question or something similar. So anything about the technique of what we just did or why we did what we just did?
Is there some reason it's easier in a room full of people than it is in a room alone?
There you go. So the question was, is there some reason that it's easier to meditate with a group of people than it is at home with ourselves? I can't answer that exactly, but certainly there is the field, right? The field, the relational field. Just because we're not speaking to one another or looking at each other when we're meditating, it doesn't mean there's not a field between us, right? A shared intentionality to be present. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. The triple gem, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, community. It's essential. It's not just a good thing, it's essential. Yeah. Yes?
Is this like mindfulness?
The question is this like mindfulness? Yes, what we're cultivating is mindfulness. Mindfulness of the present moment. I just want to say, what we're cultivating is called Sammasati, or right mindfulness, or wise mindfulness. Where mindfulness came from is the Buddhist path. What's being taught in the country today is not Sammasati. It's not wise mindfulness. It's just mindfulness, because it's been detached from the whole rest of the path and being taught just as a thing. Is it helpful? Sure, it's helpful. It's a good thing, but it's not it's not wise mindfulness, because it doesn't have the rest of the path supporting it. In order for it to be right or wise mindfulness, all the other aspects of the path need to be present with it and supporting it, especially ethics. The real kind of critique, kind of a negative critique of the mindfulness craze in the country and how it's being taught, is that it's devoid of ethics, which were a crucial part of this path. So, but yes, we're training ourselves to be mindful. We're cultivating. It's a mind state. We're flexing that muscle. We're cultivating it again and again and again. Even though we lose it, we come back and cultivate it again. We lose it, come back, cultivate it again. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I was reflecting on the part where you were talking about the circle and how it can get bigger to encompass more and more. And was that related to the practice that we were just doing?
So the question was, when I talked about the circle and expanding, encompassing, being able to connect with more and more of life, and is that somehow connected to what we were doing just now, just like bringing the mind back? That's a great question. And of course, not of course, but the answer is absolutely yes. Yes, it is. And this is how it's connected. This will take a little while, but I wanted to talk about this anyways, not just the importance of calming and settling the mind in the formal practice, but the importance of calming and settling the mind in our life, because Buddhist practice isn't just about sitting with our eyes closed. It's all of our waking life. So this is an excellent question. Thanks for queuing that up. So, when you blow up a balloon, yeah, there's like tension, yeah? There's tension at that edge where it's pushing outwards, right? It can be challenging at that edge. That's where our growth is. And that's where our challenges are. When we're in the middle of that circle, kind of cozy and nice, everything's just kind of pleasant and known, and nothing's really challenging us. It's okay, and it's not wrong to be in there at times, but we don't want to stay there all the time, because then nothing expands. We just hang out in the center there and kind of, I don't know, eat ice cream or whatever. So, but at those edges where it's expanding, where we're at the edge of what we can tolerate, where we're at the edge of what's okay, of what can be held, of what can be touched, there are moments of too much, or almost too much, or it's where we hit the bumps of life. Yeah, when we get bumped by life, when we have an argument with a friend, when we have an injury, when we have an illness, etc. When we lose our job, when all the bumps, the knocks of life, when we're being knocked by life, by definition, we're at our edge. We're thrown out towards that edge. So, without mindfulness, without the ability to be present and know what's going on, what we will do is habitually recoil back from that edge. No, don't like it here. Want, like the pleasant, like the cozy, must go back in that direction. Just habitually. We don't think that, we'll just bounce. It's like bouncing off it. And so we go back, we move towards where it's easy. Now on top of that, the way we bounce, the way we recoil, the way we react to these are almost, without mindfulness, are almost 100% of the time going to be harmful in some way. It's going to be, what's the word in psychology? Who's a therapist here? Anyone? No?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that word? It's when maladaptive. Most 100% of the time, it's going to be a maladaptive response to that jar. Overeating, overworking, over-relational, lost in stimulation, lost in distraction, whatever it is, we got a million of them. Chances we're going to go to that place that's most habitual. So not only are we moving away from right where our growth is, but we're doing it in a way that's not helpful. With mindfulness, we can go, okay, ouch. Someone says something to us, pushes a button, that button just got pushed. I feel like I'm 7 again. My boss just said that. I feel like I'm 7 again. Yes, I know this. I can be with this. It's painful. I feel castrated. I feel humiliated. I feel like a small boy. I feel powerless. We can know that. We can be with it. We can be mindful of it. And in doing that, we don't either overtly act out towards our boss, we don't be passive aggressive, we don't collapse and not be able to do our work, we don't get so angry that we get fired. We're just like, we can be with it. Yes, this is painful. This is part of life. This happens. It's okay. It's painful, but it's okay. It's okay. And from that place of non-reactivity, from that place of the mind being settled and steady and mindful enough to actually meet that experience without freaking out, being able to hold it, then the options open up to us. What do I want to do about this? Do I want to have a talk with my boss? I've done that 50 times. Okay, is it time to find a new job? And we can respond skillfully, wisely, compassionately. Mindfulness equals choice. Remember that. Buddhist math equation. Mindfulness equals choice. Lack of mindfulness equals reactivity. And so with mindfulness, we can stay at the edge. We can actually stay there. We can be with difficult experience without running away, without acting out, just being with it. And it's the being with it that now allows what was once a frontier place over time is like, oh, this is actually I'm much more comfortable at this edge, which by now isn't our edge anymore. So that's how being mindful helps this process of expanding outwards.
So can I ask a further question?
Please.
So what you just addressed is informal, like in our lives, in the world. And I'm interested to hear you say a few words about the formal part, which is just doing, focusing on relaxing our body and breathing.
Yeah.
How does that circles concept relate?
Right. So she was saying, I'm just doing this for the recording. So that was an example of our informal practice, our daily life practice. How does cultivating mindfulness allow it to do it in the formal practice? Well, the exact same way. Exact same way. Something comes up in our mind, it's difficult, sadness, anger, and if there's not mindfulness of it, we will go to either two extremes. We will repress, suppress, run away from it, or we will indulge in it, get lost in, identify with it. One of those two extremes we'll go to. Neither of those is being with it. Yeah, there's reactivity to it. Whereas if there's some steadiness in the mind, if it's settled, if the mindfulness is strong enough, being with the breath, all of a sudden the memory of that argument we had comes up in the mind. But because the moments before, let's say, we were cultivating mindfulness and it was present with the breath, that mindfulness then turns towards that anger in the mind and goes, oh, look, there's anger. Which is in the middle of those two extremes. It's in the middle of repression, suppression, and indulgence, being lost in, meaning just having that story loop in our mind, replaying that argument over and over again, lost in it. Oh, there's anger just arose in the mind. Oh, interesting. How does that feel in the body? So it's the exact same thing, actually. It's just internally. It's happening internally in our own hearts and minds. So it really is, mindfulness is everything. Our whole path rests on the ability to be mindful. That's why it's the first skill to learn.
Well, the thought was running through my mind up through all of that. It really comes down to what I'm hearing from you is something I remember for a lot of years back. It says, don't take it personally.
Yes. So it was commenting on that what I've been saying reminded him of something he heard in the past that said, don't take it personally, don't take things personally. And that's true. Nothing is personal, because none of it is you. Your thoughts are not you. Your body sensations aren't you. Your emotions aren't you. Certainly the sounds, smells, tastes, and touches aren't you. None of it's you. So don't take it personally. It's easy to say, right? But through continuing to cultivate mindfulness and bringing this level of knowing, I want to make it sound esoteric. It's just, okay, I'll get to it. I'm going to go on a little tangent, but I want you to look at me, okay? And now I want you to shake your head back and forth vigorously and continue to look at me. Go. Vigorously. Come on, you can do it. Okay. Could you see me clearly? No. When the mind is moving and scattered and distracted and jumping from this to that, we cannot see clearly. It doesn't land on something long enough to see it. But now look at me. Right? You can see me. And if you remain non-distracted and you continue to look at me, now you can notice more about me. Oh, he's wearing a sweater. Oh, it's a blue sweater. Oh, his sleeves are rolled up. Oh, he has such and such kind of hair or eyes or, oh. the more we can stay steady and stay with something, the more we'll know something about it. And one of the things we begin to know and see is that everything is just happening on its own. And none of it is us, including our bodies, including our minds. We start to see that clearly. So yeah. Yep. And far from that being a freak out, well, sometimes it can be when if you're like on retreat and you get a hit of it, it can be a little bit, you kind of bounce off it. But over time, it's just quite natural, and it's like far from it being a problem, it's a huge relief. You are not your mind, but you are responsible for it. Remember that one. I didn't make that up. Sayadaw U Tejaniya, one of the best quotes I've ever heard. The whole Dharma is present in that quote. You are not your mind, but you are responsible for it. You are responsible for where it habituates to. Whatever is in your mind at any given moment, that's getting stronger. It's impacting your mind, and it's subtly conditioning it to want to go there again. Moment by moment by moment by moment. So you're not responsible for what arises, but you are do to go, do I want to cultivate this, or do I want to let this go? Yeah. Okay, enough into the theory.
Can I?
Yes.
So, if I understand correctly, we are not in any way control of what happens, goes through our mind.
In the moment that arises, in the moment it arises, you're not in control. You can influence it.
So that is where the choice comes in.
If we're aware.
If we're aware.
Once we realize what's
choice
present.
Does imply some control. Yeah.
It's interesting though. So, because it's momentary. So you wake up from being lost in thought. There's a choice point. You know you just woke up. There's mindfulness. I think I'll go back. Yes, I'll go back to the breath. Does that always happen? Do we always even make it back to the breath? No. If the conditions are right, it'll go off even before you make it back to the breath. In that moment, there is a choice. You form the intention in that moment, I think I'll go back to the breath. Now then, and there was enough conditions to support that clarity. The next moment is a new moment with new conditions. Those conditions may support that attention actually connecting with the breath, or they may not, and it might float off again into daydream. Part of those conditions is the strength of the intention to go back to the breath. Part of those conditions are all the past moments you connected with the breath, supporting that happening again. But what actually happens in a moment, just in that moment, that the whole universe coming together for that, you're not in control. It's too big, it's way too big. It takes a while to get that. We influence. You know, there's this cute saying, but it's actually good, it's truthful. Enlightenment is accidental, and we're practicing to become accident prone. We cultivate the conditions that are supportive, right? You cultivate the conditions for cookie. Flour, milk, sugar, butter, baking soda, heat, not too much, not too little. You support the conditions. Hopefully it happens. Remembering to set a timer and take them out in time. If that condition doesn't come to fruition and you forget, it's black char. It's not cookie, it's coal or charcoal. We create the conditions for tomato plant. water, soil, we feed the soil. Put the cloth over it when there's a late frost. We create the conditions that are supportive for it. Does that tomato come? It may or it may not. We're not in control. It's like that for everything.
Can you keep yourself from becoming enlightened?
Ah, there's a good question. Can you keep yourself from becoming enlightened?
Just accept a halfway step. A greater awareness of some sort. Like a bodhisattva.
Certainly in apprehending Nibbana, not Nibbana itself, but the way to that, and up into including that moment is conditioned. So if you're going to support the conditions that are not helpful for that, it's not going to happen. But if you are supporting the conditions that are supportive for it, even though you don't want it to, it will. The Buddha even talked about it. He used a hen. He said, if there's this hen and she sits on her egg, and she does it diligently without getting up, takes care of it, even though the thought may arise in her mind, may this egg not hatch? It is not possible for it not to hatch. And then he says the opposite, right? So remember that. Think about that. If you practice diligently, and I'm not talking about for a weekend or a week or a year or 10 years, we're talking about the rest of your life or lifetimes. If you continue to practice, and you practice diligently, you continue to cultivate mindfulness, and you keep going, you don't stop, you don't get off that nest, it is not possible for it not to happen.